Good evening and welcome to the Quiet Library. Tonight we leave behind the lantern-lit streets of Kyoto, the quiet temples, the drifting cherry blossoms, and begin a journey unlike any we have taken before. There are no forests here, no rivers winding gently through green valleys, no marble cities rising inside. No, instead, there is sand, an endless horizon of golden dunes stretching farther than the eye can see. Welcome to the Sahara Desert. Today, many people imagine the Sahara as the vast, empty wilderness. But for thousands of years, it was something very different. It was a road. Not a road paved with stone, but a network of invisible paths known only to experienced travelers. Across these shifting sands moved merchants, scholars, pilgrims, passengers, and entire camel caravans carrying goods between North Africa and the kingdoms of West Africa. Without these journeys, many of history's greatest cities would never have flourished. Our own journey begins just before the sunrise. The desert is surprisingly cool. The night's chill still lingers in the air, and a gentle breeze smooths the ridges of the dunes. The stars are only beginning to fade. Above us, the sky is crowded with constellations, long before compasses became common. Experienced caravan guides learned and leaned to navigate by stars. At night, they watched the position of familiar constellations. During the day, they recognized distant rock formations and direction of prevailing winds and subtle changes in landscape that most travelers would have never noticed. The desert rarely offered signposts. Knowledge itself became a map. Ahead of us, the first camels are already kneeling. One by one, bundles are carefully secured to their backs. Large blocks of salt, rolled textiles, fine pottery, glass beads, leather goods, and carefully wrapped bundles of books. Everything must be balanced. An overloaded camel may refuse to stand. A poorly balanced load could shift and injure the animal. Nothing is left to chance. We gently place our hand upon the neck of the nearest camel. If you wished to cross the Sahara 1,000 years ago, this animal was not merely helpful, it was essential. The camel transformed life in the Sahara. Its broad feet prevented it from sinking deeply into soft sand. Its thick eyelashes and narrow nostrils helped protect it from blowing dust. Most remarkably, a healthy camel could travel for days with little water, making journeys across immense stretches of desert possible. For this reason, historians sometimes call the camel the ship of the desert. Like ships crossing the ocean, camel caravans connected distant civilizations. As the sun slowly rises, the temperature begins to change. Golden light spreads across the dunes. Long shadows stretch across the sand before quietly disappearing. The caravan begins to move. The sound is gentle, soft footsteps, the creak of leather straps, the occasional low call of a camel. No wheels, no engines, only a steady rhythm that has echoed across these deserts for centuries. The journey is long. Some caravans traveled for weeks, others remained on the road for months, stopping at wells and oasis towns before continuing onward. These watering places became vital meeting points where merchants exchanged news, repaired their equipment, tested their animals, and prepared for the next stage of the journey. Without them, crossing the Sahara would have been nearly impossible. The desert itself was never lifeless. We noticed small birds gliding overhead, carried by the warm currents of air. A tiny desert fox leaves delicate footprints near a rocky outcrop before disappearing into the shade. Hardy shrubs cling to the life wherever a little moisture remains. Life survives here, not by resisting the desert, but by adapting to it. As the morning grows warmer, we reach into one of the leather packs and carefully unwrap a small white crystal. Salt. Today it sits quietly on nearly every dining table, a common ingredient we rarely think about. But in the medieval world, salt was one of the most valuable commodities on earth. It preserved meat and fish long before there was refrigeration. It helped replace minerals lost through hard labor in hot climates. Communities that lacked local salt deposits depended upon long-distance trade. Some desert salt mines, such as those at Daganza, supplied enormous quantities that were carried south by camel caravans. In many places, salt was valuable enough to be exchanged for gold, making it one of the foundations of trans-Sahara commerce. The wealth of entire kingdoms depended upon this trade. By midday, heat begins shimmering above the sand. The horizon seems to ripple like water. Yet, experienced travelers know better than to trust every distant reflection. The desert often creates mirages, optical illusions caused by layers of hot air bending light near the ground. For someone unfamiliar with Sahara, a shimmering lake may appear just ahead, but as one approaches, it quietly disappears. The desert teaches patience. It rewards those who understand it, and it humbles those who believe they understand it. Late in the afternoon, the land begins to change. The dunes grow lower, scattered grasses appear far away. A line of green stretches across the horizon. It's not another mirage, it is life. The mighty Niger River, one of Africa's great waterways, flows nearby, nourishing farms, villages, and trade routes that have supported communities for centuries. Beyond those trees, beyond the river, lies a city whose reputation would one day reach Europe and Middle East and beyond. A city where merchants traded gold and salt, where scholars debated astronomy, medicine, mathematics, and law, where thousands of handwritten books filled libraries, a city many believed was only a legend. Tomorrow, our caravan will finally arrive at Timbuktu. Morning arrives softly. The cool air of dawn still lingers over the land, and after many days crossing the open desert, the sight before us feels almost impossible. The endless sea of sand has given way to life. Trees sway gently in the breeze. Tall grasses ripple along the river banks. Bird song replaces the quiet rhythm of the caravan. Ahead, the rooftops of Timbuktu slowly emerge in the morning light. Unlike the marble cities of Europe or the stone temples of Asia, Timbuktu rises from the earth itself. Its buildings are the color of warm honey. Walls of sun-dried mud brick catch the first rays of sunlight, growing softly against the pale blue sky. At first glance, the city appears simple, almost modest. Yet appearances can be deceiving. For centuries, travelers spoke of Timbuktu with wonder. Some described it as unimaginably wealthy. Others doubted it even existed. European mapmakers often marked its location with uncertainty, sometimes adding notes that admitted they knew little about the mysterious city beyond the Sahara. Reality, however, was no less remarkable. Our caravan approaches one of the city gates. The guards greet the merchants warmly. Many recognize one another by name. Trade is built upon trust, and trust grows over years of returning journeys. The camels kneel once more. Their heavy loads are carefully unloaded. Large slabs of desert salt, still wrapped in leather. They are carried toward the market. Nearby, merchants inspect bundles of woven cloth from North Africa. Others examine copper tools, glass beads, fine ceramics, dried dates, and fragrant spices that have traveled astonishing distances. Every object has its own history. Every journey connects another corner of the world. Our guide gestures toward a broad, open square. This is where the desert meets the river. Timbuktu prospered because it stood near one of history's great transportation networks. Goods arriving across the Sahara could continue by boat along the Niger River, reaching farming communities and kingdoms deep within West Africa. Likewise, products from the south could travel north toward the Mediterranean world. The city became a meeting place, but not only for merchants, for ideas. As we wander through the marketplace, the air is filled with conversation. Arabic, Songhay, Tamashek, Manding languages, and many others. People from different cultures negotiate prices, share news, exchange stories from distant lands. Long before newspapers or radio or the internet, markets were places where information traveled. The smell of fresh bread drifts from a nearby oven. Women arrange baskets filled with onions, millet, beans, and vegetables harvested from nearby farms nourished by the Niger River. Fishermen have already arrived with their morning catch. Children help carry baskets balanced expertly upon their heads. Nearby, a blacksmith, its hammer rings steadily against glowing metal. The city hums with quiet purpose. Nothing feels rushed. Everything feels connected. We pause beside a merchant carefully weighing small pieces of gold. Unlike the great gold coins familiar in Europe, much of West Africa's gold trade relied upon gold dust or carefully measured nuggets. Tiny balances ensured fair exchange. The gold itself often came from regions far to the south, especially the rich gold fields of Bambouk and Bure. It was this precious metal, combined with the salt arriving from the Sahara, that made the Mali Empire one of the wealthiest states of the medieval world. People often speak of gold, but gold alone never built great cities. It was the people, the merchants, the farmers, the boatmen, the craftsmen, and the scholars. Together, they gave Timbuktu its heartbeat. As the sun climbs higher, we approach one of the city's most recognizable buildings. Its walls rise gracefully from the earth. Wooden beams project from the exterior like carefully arranged ladders. These beams are not decorations. They serve an important purpose. Each year, after the rainy season, residents repair the earthen walls with fresh layers of matte plaster. The projecting beams allow workers to climb safely while maintaining the building. Across generations, entire communities have participated in preserving these remarkable structures. Architecture here is never fully finished. It's cared for, renewed, passed from one generation to the next. The most famous of these buildings is the Jigureber Mosque, completed in early 14th century during the reign of Mansa Musa, the ruler whose pilgrimage to Mecca became legendary. In 1324, Mansa Musa traveled across North Africa with a vast caravan of attendants, officials, servants, and camels carrying gold. Contemporary accounts describe the journey as so magnificent that it astonished the cities through which it passed. Although some stories grew larger with their telling, there is a little doubt that his pilgrimage introduced many people beyond Africa to the wealth and influence of the Mali Empire. When he returned, he encouraged learning, architecture, and scholarship throughout his kingdom. Timbuktu benefited enormously from that vision. Yet, the greatest treasures of this city were never buried beneath ground. They waited upon shelves, in classrooms, and inside the minds of those who came here to learn. And we will step beyond these walls into one of the greatest centers of learning in the medieval world, where books could be valued as highly as precious metals, and where knowledge itself became one of Timbuktu's richest forms of wealth. The afternoon sun now hangs high above the city. Its warmth settles gently upon the earthen walls, while narrow streets remain pleasantly cool beneath the shade of overhanging roofs. The marketplace continues its steady rhythm behind us. Merchants bargain politely, children laugh, donkeys pull small carts through winding lanes. Yet, as we follow our path farther into the city, the sounds begin to soften. The conversations become quieter, and the streets grow calmer. We are entering another part of Timbuktu. Not the city of merchants, but the city of scholars. Ahead stands a simple courtyard. There are no towering marble columns, no grand gates covered in gold, only sun-baked walls, wooden doors, and the quiet murmur of people deep in conversation. This is one of the places where learning flourished. Today, many people imagine universities as enormous campuses with lecture halls and libraries. In medieval Timbuktu, learning often looked very different. A respected scholar might gather students beneath the shade of a tree, inside a mosque courtyard, or within the cool rooms of a family home. Knowledge was carried by people, not by buildings. Students sit quietly in a circle. Some are young boys, others are grown men who have traveled hundreds of miles to continue their studies. There is no single age for learning here. Education is considered a lifelong pursuit. Before each student rests a handwritten manuscript. There are no printed books. The printing press has not yet reached this part of the world. Every page has been copied carefully by hand. Each line requires patience. Each letter demands precision. Ink is prepared from natural materials. Pens are carved from reeds. Paper arrives through long-distance trade routes stretching across North Africa and beyond. Books are precious, not simply because they are expensive, but because every copy represents weeks or even months of careful work. The teacher opens a manuscript. He does not begin speaking immediately. Instead, the students read quietly for several moments. Only then does the discussion begin. Questions are encouraged. Different interpretations are examined. Students respectfully debate one another. The goal is not merely to memorize, but to understand. Knowledge grows stronger when thoughtful people are willing to question it. The subjects taught here are remarkably diverse. Many visitors expect only religious studies. Certainly, the study of the Quran and Islamic law formed an important part of education, but the curriculum reached much further. Astronomers carefully observed the movement of stars and planets. Mathematicians solved practical problems involving trade, inheritance, and architecture. Physicians copied medical texts while recording treatments used by local healers. Historians documented the lives of rulers, cities, and ordinary people. Poets composed verses celebrating wisdom, friendship, and faith. grammar, logic, geography, philosophy, even the careful art of handwriting itself, all found a place within Timbuktu's intellectual life. One young student carefully unfolds a star chart. Tiny circles, fine lines, and delicate notes fill the page. Astronomy served many practical purposes. Scholars used the stars to help determine prayer times, navigate long journeys, and understand the changing seasons. For merchants crossing the Sahara, the sky could become the most reliable guide of all. Nearby, a man carefully copies an older manuscript onto fresh paper. He works with extraordinary concentration. If he makes an error, he pauses, corrects it carefully, and continues. His work may preserve these ideas for future generations. Without scribes like him, many texts would simply disappear as older copies wore away. It is slow work, but it is important work, perhaps the quietest form of heroism. As we continue through the courtyard, we open a wooden chest. Inside, neatly wrapped bundles of manuscripts rest beneath careful folded cloth. Some families owned only a few treasured volumes. Others built remarkable private libraries over generations. Books became family heirlooms. Parents passed them to their children, children to their grandchildren, not as objects of wealth, but as a gift of knowledge. For many households, a carefully preserved manuscript carried memories of so valuable as pieces of gold. Outside, the afternoon breeze stirs fine desert dust across the street. Somewhere nearby, the call to prayer rises gently above the rooftops. Conversations pause. Pans are laid carefully upon the table. The city grows still for a few peaceful moments. When the prayer has ended, life quietly resumes. Lessons continue, books are open again, questions return. The search for understanding goes on. Many people cross the Sahara. They came hoping to find gold. But those who stayed often discovered something far more valuable. As the shadows begin to lengthen, we leave the scholars behind and step once more into the streets of Timbuktu. Soon, we will meet the families who called this remarkable city home. We will discover what they cooked, how they built their houses, how children spent their evenings, and how ordinary life unfolded in one of the world's greatest centers of learning. The afternoon slowly gives way to evening. The sun hangs lower now, its bright light becoming softer, warmer, casting long golden shadows across earthen streets. The busiest hours of the marketplace have now passed. Merchants begin packing their goods. The air feels calmer. The city seems to exhale. We have met the merchants, We have listened to the scholars, but most people who lived here were neither. They were regular families, and the city belonged to them. We leave the main streets behind and enter a quiet residential neighborhood. The houses here stand close together. Their thick walls are built from sun-dried earth mixed with straw. The material may seem humble, yet it is remarkably well suited to the climate. During the heat of the day, the thick walls absorb warmth slowly, helping the rooms inside remain pleasantly cool. At night, as desert temperatures fall, that stored warmth is released again. Long before electricity or air conditioning, people learned to build with the climate rather than against it. Some homes have flat roofs, others surround small open courtyards where families gather during the cooler hours of the day. A date palm provides welcoming shade. Clay jars filled with water rest against the wall. A breeze moves quietly through the courtyard, carrying away some of the afternoon heat. Water was precious. Although the Niger River flowed nearby, fetching clean water remained part of daily life. Children and adults carried large clay jars from wells or river access points. The work was shared. Like many ordinary tasks, it brought neighbors together. We pause outside a family kitchen. The smell is comforting. Fresh millet porridge shimmers slowly in a clay pot. Nearby, a stew made with onions, beans, leafy greens, and fish from the Niger bubbles gently over a charcoal fire. Millet and sorghum formed important staples throughout much of West Africa. Rice was also grown in some regions along the river's floodplains, where seasonal waters created fertile farmland. Meals reflected the changing seasons and the foods available nearby. Nothing was wasted. Everything had value. A grandmother kneels beside two children. She teaches them how to grind grain using a large stone mortar. The rhythm is slow, steady, patient. The children laugh when they spill a little flour. She smiles and shows them again. And they begin once more. Education here is not limited to books. Skills are passed from one generation to the next one, quietly, through observation and practice. As we continue walking, we notice something surprising. Many doorways remain open. Neighbors greet one another freely. Someone pauses to help prepare a broken basket. Another family shares fresh bread with visitors who have arrived from a nearby village. Hospitality has long held an important place in many West African cultures. A traveler arriving after a long journey could often expect water, food, and a place to rest before being asked many questions. Generosity strengthened communities, living in environments where cooperation offers survival. Nearby, a tailor works beneath the shade of a simple awning. Colorful cotton cloth lies folded beside him. With careful hands, he stitches flowing robes that protect against both heat and blowing sand. Loose-fitting garments allow air to circulate while shielding the skin from the powerful desert sun. Some fabrics have been dyed deep indigo, others glow with warm shades of ochre or soft white. Clothing here serves both beauty and practicality. A little farther on, children gather beneath a large tree. One boy carefully carves a small toy camel from a piece of wood. Others invent games using smooth river stones. Their laughter raises into the evening air. For a moment, history feels wonderfully ordinary. No kings, no empires, simply children playing before supper. The call to prayer gently echoes across the rooftops once again. Many families pause. Some make their way toward the mosque. Others finish preparing the evening meal before gathering together. As darkness slowly approaches, oil lamps begin appearing inside homes. Their soft light flickers against earthen walls. Outside, the sky transforms. One by one, the first stars emerge above the Sahara. The very same stars that guided caravans across the desert. They now watch quietly over the sleeping city. For the people of Timbuktu, the stars were never distant. They were companions. They guided merchants, they inspired scholars, and reminded every traveler that even the longest journey has direction. There is one story left, perhaps the most remarkable of all. It is the story of how this city and its greatest treasures survived. Not because they were hidden in palaces, but because ordinary families refused to let them disappear. We will open the final chapter and discover how the people of Timbuktu protected centuries of knowledge for generations yet to come. Night has settled over Timbuktu. The day's warmth slowly slips back into the earth. A cool breeze drifts in from the desert, carrying with it the scent of dust, clay, and distant cooking fires that have nearly burned down to glowing embers. Above us, the Sahara sky reveals itself without the lights of a modern city. Thousands upon thousands of stars fill the darkness. The Milky Way stretches across the heavens like a pale river of light. For centuries, travelers looked up at the same sky. Merchants trusted it. Scholars studied it. Children dreamed beneath it. Some things even history cannot change. The streets of Timbuktu are now quiet. Most homes have closed their wooden doors. Only a few oil lamps still flicker through narrow windows. Their gentle light spills onto the sandy streets. We walk slowly through one final neighborhood. We stop before an ordinary-looking home. There are no guards, no towering walls, Nothing suggests that anything extraordinary lies inside of it. This is exactly the point. We stepped through the doorway. The room is simple. Earthen walls, hand-woven mats, wooden shelves. At first, nothing seems unusual. Then our eyes adjust. Carefully wrapped bundles rest upon the shelves. Some are tied with leather straps. Others are protected inside wooden chests. Each bundle contains handwritten manuscripts. Some discuss astronomy, others medicine, law, poetry, mathematics, history, religious thoughts, letters exchanged between scholars, records of a family life, observations of stars, even practical advice from merchants and judges. Together, these manuscripts preserve centuries of human thought. We gently lift one volume. Its leather cover has become smooth from generations of careful hands. The paper has darkened with age, yet the elegant Arabic script remains remarkably clear. We open it slowly. Every page was written by hand. Every line required so much patience. Every mistake meant beginning again. Books like this were never produced by machines. Each one is unique. For generations, families cared for them with extraordinary devotion. Parents taught children how to protect them from moisture, dust, insects, and careless handling. Owning books carried responsibility, not simply pride. Knowledge was something to be cared for, like a garden, or a precious tree, or a family tradition. As centuries passed, empires changed, trade routes shifted, new rulers arrived. Some periods brought prosperity, others brought hardship. Yet, throughout these changes, many families quietly continued protecting their collections. Sometimes, the greatest acts of preservation happen without anyone noticing. We often imagine history being saved by kings or great armies, but sometimes it survives because ordinary people quietly decide not to let it be forgotten. In recent centuries, historians and local families have worked together to preserve many of Timbuktu's surviving manuscripts. Although time, climate, conflict, and sometimes neglect have taken their toll on countless documents, tens of thousands of manuscripts still exist today in public institutions and private family collections. They continue to offer valuable insight into the intellectual, legal, scientific, literary, and religious life of medieval West Africa. Each manuscript reminds us that knowledge has never belonged to one civilization alone. Ideas have always traveled, even across deserts and rivers, and languages and generations. That same trade routes that carried salt also carried books. The same caravans that transported gold also transported questions. Curiosity has always crossed borders. We extinguish the small oil lamp beside us. The room grows quiet once more. Outside, the wind blows gently through the narrow streets. Far away, a camel bell rings softly in the darkness. Tomorrow, another caravan will arrive, another will depart. Life will continue as it has for centuries before we leave. We have walked through many cities together. We have crossed deserts, sailed seas, sat beside philosophers, and watched beneath cherry blossoms. But every place has taught us the same quiet lesson. A civilization is remembered not only by the monuments that it built, but by the knowledge, the kindness, and the wisdom its people chose to pass to the next generation. The manuscripts of Timbuktu are not remarkable because they survived. They are remarkable because generation after generation, someone believed they were worth saving. The stars continue shining above the Sahara. The desert grows still. The city rests peacefully beneath the night sky, and somewhere on a quiet wooden shelf, another handwritten page waits patiently for someone, someday, to read it again. The library will be here, and another volume will be waiting. Until then, may your dreams be peaceful. May your curiosity continue to guide you, and may you always remember that the greatest journeys are often the ones that begin with a single question. Good night.